Good morning, girls. The last interspecific relationship that I want to cover today is competition. You have learned about competition before when you studied intraspecific relationships, and now we're looking at interspecific competition, so competition between two different species. Competition is a relationship that harms both species, so it's a minus-minus competition, because it either limits access to resources and or both species need to invest energy to compete for these resources. You might remember the competitive exclusion principle or Gauss's law from last year when you did the ecology unit on the forest in Rotorua. And what that means is that no two species can indefinitely occupy the same niche in the same habitat. So in other words, if they need the exact same resources, they just can't live next to each other. So here we have an example of three species that live on the rocky shore. Here is the sea anemone, and these are barnacles, and both barnacles and sea anemone explore the same resources. They both eat, or they're both filter feeders, and they filter little plankton from the seawater. So the way they coexist is by sharing or by living in different areas of the same habitat. The sea anemone is quite a soft animal, and it can't tolerate to dry out, so it needs to stay submerged, and therefore it lives in the lower intertidal zone or in rock pools. Whereas the barnacles here, they have a shell, and you can see that they can completely close up, so they can tolerate to fall dry for quite a significant amount of time, and they live much higher up in the intertidal zone. So while these two species share the exact same diet, they live in different areas of the same habitat. And then thirdly, here we have a crab. The crab also lives in the intertidal zone, and it can live in all areas of the intertidal zone and freely move around. But the way the crab shares its habitat with the other two species is by eating something entirely different. So the crab is a predator, and it's not a filter feeder, and thereby doesn't compete with either of the other two species. So there is experimental proof for this principle. What they've done here is an experiment with creatures called paramecium. They are unicellular organisms, and they live in fresh water. And they put them in a tank, and they gave them ideal growing condition in this tank, and they put them into the tank separately. So while both graphs here are in the same, both graphs here are together, they actually lived in two different tanks with identical conditions. And you see the conditions were really good for both of them. They started out with fairly low numbers, but then the numbers increased, so they were reproducing, and you can see that both of them leveled off at a fairly similar level. So what this proves is that the condition in the tank were really good for both species. Then they repeated this experiment, but this time they put both species together into one tank. And you can see beginning when you have fairly low numbers, they're both increasing nicely, but then all of a sudden one population crashes and the other one keeps growing. So what happens here is that in the beginning, when the numbers are really low, there isn't really much competition. There are enough resources or enough space, enough food for both species to thrive. But eventually, when the numbers get higher, they start competing, and then one species outcompetes the other. So the red one is outcompeted by the blue one. Interspecific competition can be quite fierce. Here's an example of competition between lion and hyena, and they obviously compete for the same prey. And those of you who have seen Lion King, you know that lions and hyenas actually hate each other. So what does Gauss's principle say? If two species occupy the same niche, then one of the species should be outcompeted and eliminated by the other. And that's what we saw in that experiment in the tank with these two paramecium species. However, what often happens in nature, instead of one species being outcompeted, one of the species will undergo niche diversification to minimize the amount of overlap. So it will start to explore a slightly different aspect of the niche. And as an end result, each species ends up with a modified, realized niche that is not identical with the other organism. How can this niche diversification happen? So within the same habitat, species can exploit different microhabitats, and we saw that with the sea anemone and the barnacles. They live in the same habitat, the intertidal zone. They have the same diet, but they live in slightly different areas of that habitat. Secondly, they can exploit different food resources. So that's what we saw with the crab and the sea anemone living in the same area, but they have different diets. Or, for example, the New Zealand spotted shag and the New Zealand pied shag, they're both seabirds, and they both eat fish, but one feeds out in the ocean and the other one feeds on the coast. So while they're fairly similar, they exploit different type of fish. And then lastly, they can exploit the same resources but at different times. So one species might be nocturnal, whereas the other one is active at night. So example here is a kiwi that feeds on insects at night, whereas the robin, which is another type of bird, feeds on insects during the day. Here is another example of niche diversification. So here you see a rock with barnacles, and it's again in the intertidal area zone. So that's the habitat, and you can see that the little ones are on the top and the big ones are on the bottom. Now the scientists did an experiment and they removed the big ones, and you can see that the little ones actually are perfectly capable to occupy the entire range. However, when the big ones are around, they outcompete the little ones, and what they actually do is they scrape the little ones off the rock and throw them off, and then they take this area over. And this kind of niche diversification is called zonation. So there is a horizontal pattern of species. Here we see the rocky shore zonation, so the intertidal zone, and down here you have species who need to be submerged most of the time because they are quite soft-bodied species and they can't withstand drying up for very long. For example, here we have our sea anemone, whereas up here we have species like limpets who can glue themselves to the rock and withstand falling dry for several hours. Here we have stratification. You might remember that from last year when you went to Rotorua Forest. So this is the vertical pattern, and these plants are competing for light, and they have developed different strategies. So these ones here on the top, they have adaptations that allows them to cope with really high light level, and they actually need high light level to survive, whereas these down here, who live in the shade most of their life, have developed strategies to survive with very low levels of light. And then lastly, we can have pattern over time. So if a new habitat opens up, then you first have so-called pioneer plants coming in that can live with immature soil and scorching sunlight, and then over time they get replaced by different species until in the very end you have a mature forest. Now this is called succession, and in this case that's a process that would take several decades. And the seedlings of these trees would not be able to survive under these conditions because they need much more mature soil and they also need shade to grow. So they all need their specific conditions and they follow each other in the course of time. So here are the 4 niche diversification that I just talked about. Stratification, which is the vertical distribution. Succession, which is a change over time. And zonation, which is a horizontal pattern. And that was it. Here are the readings and the workbook pages relating to competition. Here is a summary of all the different interspecific relationships we've discussed, with all the pluses and minuses. And to complete and revise this chapter, I would suggest that you complete your workbook pages. You read chapter 8, you complete the activity in chapter 8, these are good questions, and then go to the folder practice questions on Diaconnect. There are past exam paper questions, and there is a good one on beds and roses that covers several types of relationships.